this is true for everyone listening. It's a bad idea to start a business. Just speaking statistically and mathematically, no matter how good your idea, it's a bad idea to try to turn it into a business because the majority fail. What does that mean? That means entrepreneurs are optimists, because if not, you look at the math and say, nope, I'm going to keep working for somebody else.
So here we are. It's another episode of Big Talk about Small Business. All right. And we're back again with Levi King.
Man, we had such a good episode the last time. I mean, I think that what's interesting, like when you and I talk and we meet with guests like Levi, like the value that they bring for like if you are starting out a business or if you've been in one, like it's just nothing but problems like we talked about. Mm-hmm. But folks like Levi can give some really good insight if we would just actually listen a little bit, right? And kind of knowing how to navigate this financial world. Because, I mean, what Levi does, you know, like we've talked about financing, like getting loans versus getting VC versus getting angel versus just strapping it out, getting your
credit cards maxed
that's
out.
That's it, man.
Making nothing.
Whatever it takes, man.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes. And so Levi's got a wealth of information from the last show, and we wanted to make sure we got some more time to kind of go a little bit deeper in the weeds about what this loan financing economy is really like.
Before we get into all that, I just want Levi to tell everybody once again, because not everybody maybe heard the first episode, a little bit about his business and what they do with his platform.
Love it.
Yeah, you bet. And the idea of NAV was, and by the way, thanks for having me on again. The idea for NAV was born from Lendio, the first tech company I started. Lendio is a late stage profitable tech company that helps small business owners get a loan. And that's true if they need a loan now or if they want to come back in 6 months later. But it's really a snapshot of a moment in time. Your credit and financial health as a small business, it's what it looks like today is a reflection of all the decisions you made over the previous years. And at that moment in time, it's tough to do anything to make those options better. They are what they are. And so after seeing, the majority of applicants, and this was true when I was out in Lendio, still true today, the majority of applicants actually don't get approved for anything. And then of those that do get approved, the vast majority don't love the option. They think they're, I got a solid business. What the heck? Like I'm profitable, whatever their mindset is. And they go, why is my best option half the money I need for this project, or a lot more expensive than I anticipated, or the payback term's too short. I need to stretch out the return on the investment wherever I'm investing in my business is slower than the payback term for the loan. And, we had tons of them asking us, well, what can I do to get in a better spot? So that was the idea for NAV. And so NAV is a financial readiness layer. So we help you understand your personal credit, your business credit, and the cash flows of the business through the lens of how is a lender looking at you. And when I say lender, it's not just for a business loan, it's for a business credit card or for trade credit, which is oftentimes overlooked and under leveraged by small business owners. So that's just net 30, net 60 payment terms that you get with your vendors and suppliers. So you don't have to pay it at the moment that you get the supplies, the services. And our software helps you understand from all those different views, where am I buttoned up? Where do I need to make improvements so that my options improve over time? And so that was kind of the inspiration for NAV is let's get ahead of financing events and make sure you're buttoned up. And if you don't like your options, now you have very clear information and instruction on what to do to get in a better spot for financing in the future so you get better terms and such. So that was the inspiration. We got over 1 million users, active users, and across all industries, time in business, geography, credit risk. So we're not built for, these 7 industries. Our software works no matter what you're working on and where you're trying to move your business forward, no matter what stage of life you're at in the business.
It's fantastic. I got a real quick question. So I'm sure everybody's kind of familiar with the Dun Bradstreet number, right? Or some other type of
D&B creditworthiness.
Yeah, all that. Does that still come in? Is that still a big factor in the credit readiness for business?
Indeed. So Dun Bradstreet specifically and the Dun's number, when I mentioned trade credit, the net 30, net 60 terms, sometimes more, you can get up to net 180 depending on the project and depending on the supplier. But that world is largely powered by Dun Bradstreet credit reports and scores. And so that's another thing that's a bit confusing about business credit is Equifax, Experian, and Dun Bradstreet are the big three on the business side, but they kind of specialize in and dominate in different sectors of the economy. So if you're getting a telecom account, things like that, that's usually Equifax, or the equipment leasing and financing world, that's usually an Equifax report that's going to matter more than Dun & Bradstreet. But then there's always exceptions. So there's no absolutes. So that's true of Equifax, but Dun & Bradstreet and Experian also have some business in those verticals. And so, yeah, the Dun's number is about as close to a monopoly on like a string of numbers as you could have in importance for a business, because it's not just for trade credit. If you want to do business with a Fortune 1000, any type of government, municipality, federal, state, typically local, county, city, you've got to have a Paydex score above 80, whether that's you're going to do snow removal for Walmart at their parking lots in the geo you live, or you want to have a product on their shelves. You got to have a minimum business credit score. And that's all driven by the Duns number ecosystem.
You know, I'm sorry.
I was just real quick on that. Does your software show where you're at with that if I was a user, right?
Absolutely.
Tell me what that number is and then how to fix it, basically.
Yeah, and if you don't have one, how do you get one? And then, of course, how do you get credit established around that Duns number?
Well, you know, that's funny. I was in the management consulting business for many, many years, and we had one competitor that was our primary competitor. And our second largest revenue line was strategy. First was M&A. But I used to say to my clients, we'd be talking about a new client about us doing this strategy consulting for them. And I always said, if you run a D&B creditworthiness rating on, and they'd say they were talking with the other guys, I'd say, if you run a D&B, checked out their D&B creditworthiness rating, is that who you want advising you on how to run your business? My God, okay, because they rated them unstable. Okay, and it's like, that's who you want telling you how to run your business? Okay, just thought maybe you should check that out.
That's right.
But, you know, back on the vendor credit you mentioned, I don't know what your experience has been with this, Levi, but I actually learned something from a textbook I had in my entrepreneurship classes years ago. I don't use one now, but it was called, it was all about using what they called vendor statements. And basically the idea is that once a year, sort of toward the end of the year, let's say November 15, November 30, you send out a vendor statement to all of your vendors where you say, this year we anticipate we're going to do 400,000 worth of business with you. Next year, it looks like it's going to be 500 to 600 or whatever the numbers are. What kind of a discount will you give us? Mm-hmm. And payment terms? And basically, it's just, to me, it's the most brilliant idea. You send that out to all your vendors, and they assume that you're going out getting bids from everybody. Right. And they you may not be sending it to any of their competitors, but they're basically bidding against themselves to give you the best credit deal they can. Mm-hmm. And it's a great tool. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely a best practice, is an annual function, but you can also do it in real time throughout the year. I learned this by practice. My first company before I got into tech was a electric sign manufacturing, installation and servicing business. And so I had 10 or 12 vendors that I had credit terms with. And, you know, let's say I'd win a job, I'd get 50% down on the job, but my cost basis was going to be 80 to 90%. So it's this weird relationship where the customer's the creditor at first, because they write me a check for 50% down. They've got nothing. They're taking a risk on me. Right. Once I invest more than 50% in the job, now I'm a creditor to them. And a lot of these jobs, like if it was a really stable, large company, but that I knew was really slow to pay, I'm still going to take the work, even though I know I'm going to get paid late. I know they're good for the money. Yep. And so, you know, you're talking about end of year, which is good practice, but even in real time, then I'd get on the phone with all my suppliers and say, hey, I need net 181, you know, whatever, more than net 30, net 60 on this job for this order. I need you to say yes, or I'm buying it from your competitor. And they all have a competitor. That's the nice thing. Even in Boise, Idaho, a small geo, there was 2 wholesale electric sign supply companies in town. And so there was only 2 you could play against each other, but they played ball. They wanted the order. And so yeah, it's not just something you should do once a year, but then remember, like, you got flexibility. Even when they say, like, okay, here's the terms for the next year, they're usually pretty friendly. Like, they have to be in the business of extending credit or they won't be competitive. And so a lot of times you can pay them late. You just got to really make sure, and this is another mistake small business owners make, is they'll call the supplier and say, hey, I know this was net 30. I haven't got paid yet. Can you give me another 30 days? And so it's usually a very friendly ecosystem, right? Because you got to. It's like, you're my customer. You didn't get paid. Kind of makes sense. You can't pay me yet. But then the mistake that happens is they don't adjust that payment. There's whatever software they're using to track stuff to report to Dun Bradstreet and sometimes all the bureaus. So even though they gave you permission to late payment, if they give you permission to pay late, it's not late, right? They changed the terms of repayment. And so I learned this. Another thing I learned the hard way once I started to understand all this at the manufacturing company was I'd have to remind them, like, hey, don't report me late, though. You're giving me permission. So I need you to not report me late because it's going to start to hammer my credit. And so, yeah, it's something you can do all the time as far as wheeling and dealing with credit terms with your vendors.
100%. What do you see, like, out of folks that are using your software? I mean, I'm sure you got data on it, but what's like maybe the top 2 reasons that a business is not credit worthy, right? Or hits that score?
So speaking specifically of credit worthiness, you don't just automatically know there's such thing as business credit. And so it's usually in your journey as a small business owner, at some point you stub your toe. Look, like all 3 of the commercial business credit bureaus, I discovered by stubbing my toe somewhere. And I still remember that when I found out Equifax out, when I was like several years in business, I'm like, how the hell did I not know Equifax had a business credit report? But the most common thing that trips people up is either something negative, they didn't know it was there. So it's usually just a lack of awareness or something inaccurate. It's because in the consumer space, for something to show up on your credit report, you've got to have a perfect match of 3 of the 4 of social, address, date of birth, and name. And in business credit, it's just tying your zip code /address to your business name. There's lots of other businesses that might have a name that's really similar to yours. And so it's really common just to get business credit reports crossed with some other business. And so you just don't know there's something negative. Then you got to go through a bit of a process with Dun Bradstreet to get that ironed out. But all the bureaus want accurate data. They're not against small business. They want to have accurate data. And so if there's errors, you can get them fixed. It just usually takes a little bit of heavy lifting.
Is that process kind of daunting? Like, if you were mixed up, I mean, to get it fixed, I know if I have on my personal credit, there's something wrong. It's brutal, right?
Sure.
But I mean, how's it on the business side? Is it just as bad?
It's not too bad because business credit's not regulated by the FCRA. So you said it's brutal on consumer, but at least they got to follow the law and respond within certain timelines. And the creditor's got to prove that it's accurate, timely, and verifiable. If one of those 3 they can't prove, then they got to take it off your credit report. The commercial bureaus, even though they're not covered by the FCRA, they have processes in place that basically mirror what happens in the consumer space. So it's less about that you just got to have documentation. They're not just going to trust you. So if you got to show your Secretary of State, probably pull the record of some other business, their Secretary of State, and submit a package. It's like, look, no, this is my information. That's their information. You need to untangle this. But
interesting.
But they're not there to fight you on it. Yeah.
Right.
Can we take this just a slightly different direction for a minute?
Yeah, sure.
Here's another problem, Levi, is companies that are so debt averse that they don't use debt when they should. My students have to do a project every semester where they work with an area business to increase revenue, increase profitability, reduce risk for the owner, and increase the value of the business. And just last night we had one. It was really interesting. So business was doing $6 million a year, had a $3 million plus book value, $1 million in cash sitting in the bank. And it was put up as a canon of good management, as an example of good management. And it only made a 3% margin on sales, by the way. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Right. So it was like $200K on $6 million in revenue, but $3 million in net worth plus. And I guess, I pointed it out to the student. I'm like, I appreciate that the owner of this business is very conservative, and they have a business that has a real low risk profile. However, their return on equity sucks.
Mm.
Do they need that kind of book value in that business? And wouldn't they be better to extract a bunch of that cash out, do something different, borrow some of the money, and jack up their return on invested capital? I mean, and go use their money for something else. I think a lot of people don't really think like that, though. They just think all debt's bad.
Yeah.
And, in some cases that results in them using up all their working capital. That's a more common problem I see with small business owners. They want to buy and pay for everything, and then they run out of working capital. But the second problem is this issue of just being so debt averse and not really understanding the relationship between the profits the business generates and how much is invested in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that applies to me in my experience. So I was raised, my dad, debt was bad. He sold like a part of his farm to pay off the rest of the farm in the 70s, like before I was born. So my whole life, it was all about don't use debt for anything, pay cash for your cars. I had no personal credit when I started my first business, and I thought debt was bad. Like that was indoctrinated into me at the deepest level. And I had to have several experiences to realize, like, wait, no, debt is leverage for me to get ahead faster in this business. And all that matters is if you're using debt, you need to make sure that whatever the project or however you're calculating return on investment, that you're making more than what the debt costs you. And obviously the more the merrier. But one of those experiences was I didn't have a 20-ton boom truck. And sometimes I would win a job where I had to rent one, and my boom truck only went 60 feet in the air. So whether it was I needed more height or I needed more weight capacity, I would have to rent equipment that I didn't own. And so I looked at a used piece of boom truck, 20-ton, 120-foot reach, and I looked back at all the rentals that I'd had to rent the year before for jobs where I needed a truck that big. And then I got the equipment lease numbers, and they say there's no interest rate. And I figured out how to calculate, well, what's the effective interest rate? It was like 14%. It wasn't great, but it was simple math. The math was I was going to pick up, I would start to, with a $1 buyout, I'm spend it on a lease against an asset that I'll eventually have. And, I'd spent like 40 grand the year before on renting equipment, renting boom trucks, and the lease expense was going to be like 20 grand, whatever it was. It was like black and white math. But then it also meant like I didn't have to wait for the boom truck to show up on a job. I could then bid a little lower because I was spending less, right? So I could have more competitive bids. But experiences like that started to break that mindset. But I was proud, like I can afford to pay cash for all my rentals. I don't need to finance anything. It's like, no, that was silly. That was costing me 20 grand a year or whatever it was, that mindset, and not having the full-time utility of the boom truck.
And speaking of that, is it, and even to your comment, Mark, in that story, is it better to, what I imagine a small business, they want to be able to get a loan for fixed assets or for assets versus operating capital, working capital, right?
Yeah, well, like a line of credit, you're saying against AR. Or
yeah,
sure.
Yeah, because okay, so if I took out a loan, even if I had AR, so I would take out, we got a little noise going on. Okay, we're good. If I took out a loan, I guess what I'm trying to say is if I'm a small business owner, what's the best way to acquire debt and for what purpose? And what's the no-go way to try to acquire debt, right? So let's say my credit health is doing great, and I've got that fixed through Levi's system now. And now I'm going to go approach and try to get some debt capital. If I was an entrepreneur and I'm going about it one of two ways, like what's the wrong way to go about that, and for what reason am I trying to get that capital versus what's the right reason to get that capital?
Yeah, and so I would just simply flip the question. So you need money for something, and then there's going to be an ideal loan type or financing type that maps to that decision and that you want to make. And so that's why trade credit is so useful. You're not buying goods on credit unless you already got a job. So that's like drop dead obvious, but it's also kind of a pain because in aggregate, you may have like 200,000 in credit limits, but that's across a dozen vendors. It'd be way easier if I just had a $200,000 line of credit. The trade credit, not only is it usually free, like there's no charge for the net 30, net 60 terms. it's also flexible. Bank's not going to be flexible on the repayment. But a line of credit, like if you're paying for goods attached to a job, it drives more discipline in your business. If you got a line of credit, you could get a little bit sloppier in your cash management, managing your expenses, and mapping your expenses to an outcome that's going to drive profits in the business. And so I think it's really just what are you trying to accomplish, and you've really got to do the math and make sure that whatever it is you want to do, it pencils out. Sometimes it's easy if you're a retailer going into the holiday season, the hot things, XYZ toy. You're going to borrow expensive money that you're paying back 3 months later, but you got a 300% margin on that hot toy. Oh, well, if it's expensive financing. But a lot of times projects are pretty skinny on the math. But even then, there was times I would use financing as a small business owner to win a job that I'd break even on, because I knew it would then turn into a repeat customer. So that's a different calculus. I was betting on future profits. I wasn't willing to lose money on a job, but I was willing to break even on a job if it meant, bringing on a new customer. And so it really just depends on the project. You'll see small business owners get like a 10-year payback SBA loan for something that's like, good hell, that should be able to pay back in a year. So that's the wrong product, because now you're for the next 9 years, you're still paying back something that was going to drive a benefit in this fiscal year. And so you really got to map it to the value that you're trying to drive in the business. Because connecting this comment back to what was just discussed, I'm a big believer, like the business has got to stand on its own 2 feet, and every year it should be kicking profit to the owner that then gets invested in personal assets. So you mentioned that the person that had all the money just sitting in the business, and the business has got to stand on its own 2 legs from a debt perspective. Now that's not true when you start, right? You leverage all of your personal assets and debt usually to get started, but that's like, I don't think you've made it until the business stands on its own 2 feet, and stands on its own 2 feet is not just servicing everything in a fiscal year, driving results in a year. Obviously, you want to break it down by much shorter increments from how you measure your business. But it's not a healthy business unless it's kicking profits back to the owner on top of the salary that they're paying themselves out of the business. You sounds like you probably have some experience on the M&A side. Like, how many times does a business owner go to sell their business? They're running their boat payment and all this creative stuff through on the cost side.
Oh, it's constant.
So it looks like they got
so much commingling.
Yeah, so it looks like they got no profits. It's like, well, yeah, that
Right.
works for taxes this year. But when you try to sell this, it looks like you're barely getting by. And I learned that when I bought a hotel, because I knocked doors on every hotel in the Treasure Valley where Boise, Idaho is located, and several times it got to the books. It was the same damn thing every time. They'd pull out a set of books and another set of books and say, like, here's what I pay my taxes on, but here's the real numbers. I say, I don't give a shit about your made up books. Like, all I can trust is what you told the government. I'm not giving you any value in this thing for this handwritten notebook where you're tracking your real profits.
That's so right, Eli. I'll tell you a story about a hotel I looked at, and it was a deal where they were trying to show that they made so much money every year, but there was $0 in labor. Zero owner pay, but zero in labor. And you know why? It was owned by an Indian guy, and all the labor was provided by family members that he brought over and gave rooms to live in and stuff. They did all the cleaning, they did the yard maintenance, they manned the desk. I'm like, this is not a real picture of how I can run this business. Okay,
like you have to come up with your own pro forma now, based on what
this thing makes nothing here at all. But yeah, that's a really good point. It is very common with small businesses, and I always discourage that, is all the commingling. Eric and we never ran our businesses like that. I mean, I never took my wife out to dinner even once on a company credit card.
Same. I mean, well, it's just like business is already complicated enough.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's no way in the world that you're going to keep all those things straight, and if you are, then it's probably not even worth your time, and it's really not worth the payout of it. Because, I mean, you want to make sure that you're showing the value in the business, and it's got to be an accurate picture of that.
But we're entrepreneurs. We're thinking about value building in the business instead of just what we extract from it every year. And, that's the difference in small business and entrepreneurship.
100%.
Is that value building. I'll give you another story just from last night's presentations that you guys will appreciate. Here was a business doing $10 million a year. It made about $1.3 million real profit. Okay. Their marketing cost was 50% of revenue.
Dang.
5-0. I've never seen anything like that. Now the business was young. It was created in like 2019 or something like that. Okay. So of course, the students are like, well, they got their marketing costs is completely out of line with the average firm in their business. And, they got to get that down or whatever. And I said, no, wait a minute. You're looking at that because the average firm in this business would have made $1.8 million on 10 instead of $1.3 million. I go, you guys are looking at this the wrong way. Think about the value these people have created. This has gone from 0 to $10 million in that amount of time. It is profitable. Their projections, I said, this thing's probably worth 3 times revenue. Okay. Because they spend that amount of money on marketing and jack that.
Oh, it's just gaining value and it's going to be perpetual.
Right. So where's the real pot of gold? It's not the extra $500K I suck out of it. It's the fact it's worth $20 million more than the next guy.
And I would say it's going to be worth $50 million more in a year. Right?
Yeah. So how do we get small business owners, though, to understand? I mean, all of us, we've had a pretty wide-ranging experience. Eli, certainly the most of any of us here, right? How do we get small business owners to be just generally more financially savvy than they are?
I think it's dialogue and discussion like this, right? And I think that, especially with Levi's experience and seeing, I think one of the best ways is probably what exactly not to do. Because those seem like what you should not do seems to be a little bit, you can hang on a little bit, because what you can do, kind of Levi's point when I asked that question earlier, well, it depends on a lot of different scenarios, right? As to why you might apply and try to get financing.
What kind of financing?
What kind of finance you need. It's like 100 different reasons why. But I think my question when I was like, what should we not do though, is like, what's a worst case scenario of which maybe somebody, Levi, that came into NAV or that in your experience that they're trying to get their credit worthy enough to get financing for a really bad idea for financing. And, do you have any suggestions on that? Like, let's tell our audience, like, don't go and try to do financing like this. The first thing I can think of is when you're desperate is like one of the worst times to try to get
you got to get it when you don't need it, obviously.
Right.
Yeah. Businesses tend to borrow money for only one of two reasons. Things are going good and I see an opportunity, or things are going bad and I got to be able to keep the lights on. And that's where the danger lies. A lot more danger lies in I'm optimistic that I'm going to turn this around than you already have a successful company. You're optimistic you're going to make it better, right? Like that one, there's usually more reasons to believe. And if you're wrong, it's usually more forgiving on the downside. And so that not seeing the reality of the situation you're in. So you lose a big customer, you're bleeding a little bit of money. You're confident you're going to win back another big customer. You think, I don't want to lay anybody off. I don't want to make any structural changes to my cost or changes structurally to my costs, structure of the business. And so I'm going to borrow money. And then a lot of times, because revenues probably show they've been declining or something's off, and oftentimes now your credit's a little beat up because it's been a little bit, then you're also getting qualified for the most expensive financing there is. So it's like doubly bad. You're getting like a merchant cash advance with a huge factor rate, which would translate to like 80% interest if it was that instead of the factor rate. That's when most people start to sink. Because if you're already trending down and you pile some expensive debt on top of the business to keep it afloat, it's not really keeping it afloat. You're at that point, you're just spending money you shouldn't be spending. And so, you always got to do the math on, does this pay out? That's a lot easier to do, like I said, when things are going well and you're looking to capitalize on some extension of opportunity from a revenue perspective. But the folks that are too slow to recognize and see the writing on the wall and say, like, I've fundamentally got to run this business at a lower cost basis until I win back another big customer, whatever. That's the worst moment to be making big financial decisions, is when you're clouded by all the misery that's surrounded you.
Been there.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, for sure. And it's a very oscillating, scary feeling. I mean, I think that we have all experienced, but I mean, it's like, at some point it's interesting, Levi, as you're talking about that, like if you lose a big client, right, which no one wants to do, but you have so much confidence because you're working in the business, you're as an owner, you're in that business working it, you're always campaigning and promoting.
Yep.
that you have confidence that the market is going to respond. You just need to knock on more doors.
More time.
Yeah, little more time.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, I've done that about a million freaking times. That's actually probably all I ever do. Now that I think about it, is how do you buy that time?
Yeah.
Because you see the market is growing, right? Versus
I'm
like
there
I have
right now on one.
Yeah, same here. I'm in one for sure. You know, versus like that other one where you probably have had a sustaining business and it was doing well. Then all of a sudden the market shifts or your competitor comes in and you keep trying to do the same damn thing over and over again because you don't. A lot of times I've seen people that are not in the business enough to be aware of what's happening.
Yeah.
Little by little, it just
they get
sneaks
more
up.
and more isolated.
Yeah. They get
the market
detached.
and the people. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's so true.
Yep. And then they're left with this scenario, and then they go get financed in a bigger hole, right?
Yeah, and there's one other aspect of being an entrepreneur. This is true for us three. This is true for everyone listening. It's a bad idea to start a business. Just speaking statistically and mathematically, no matter how good your idea, it's a bad idea to try to turn it into a business because once you already fail. What does that mean? That means entrepreneurs are optimists. Because if not, you look at the math and say, nope, I'm going to keep working for somebody else. That optimism, it does so much to make you successful. But yes, it also is the same thing that gets you in trouble.
That is so true. It's like we just got, before the show, a potential guest posed to us who is a guy who deals with gambling addiction. Okay. And I said, what does that have to do with business? But then I started thinking about it, right?
Everything.
We may have that problem.
We might need some therapy.
Yeah, we don't go to the casino in Siloam Springs or the whatever, or the Indian, you know. But we're still gamblers, betting against the odds. That's a good point. But you know, I tell you, these cases I see in my class are just fascinating. I had another one in the last couple of days that I thought was good. And here it is. The story is basically this. Guy starts a business to sell smoothies. Okay. Now they open up their shop. It's not a franchise. They get discovered by some, influencer who's got like a jillion freaking followers. So the thing like takes off like a rocket. All right. They have these great revenues. Okay, then over time, it just slowly winds down again to where now nobody makes any money. They got multiple owners. They're paying themselves zero. Okay, they already were significantly higher, and they're sitting there saying to themselves, "We're going to be doing better." I mean, I wonder. Like, my first thought was, what do these people think a freaking smoothie business? How much money do they really think that's going to generate? Do they ever do any like reasonable sort of capacity analysis on that? Like what's the real potential? Is this a $400,000 a year business? Is this an $800,000 a year business? Does anybody with one of these and in this size do $800,000 a year? It's like, it just blows me away. It's like sometimes I think people just don't even think about what the business real potential
the
is.
Real scale that it can get
to. Exactly. It's just, they must be living in like total fantasy land.
They get so enamored with their idea. I'll give you two examples that I love to give. When I had my electric sign manufacturing company, most of my customers were small businesses. And a lot of times they were brand new. We were building a sign that was going to go on the building or on the pole outside the building. And I was really young. I'm like 21 when I started. And so I know there's a lot more that I don't know than I do know at this point in my life. Let me just say it like that. So this guy comes in and he's like, "Hey, I want to open this soap/cell phone store." And I'm like, "Okay." And he starts to tell me about it. He's like, "I'm just into cell phones. I cashed out my 401k at Micron. Love cell phones. And my wife loves specialty soaps." And so can you imagine when you walk in, on the right side, there's cell phones, and on the left side, there's soap. So if you want to buy soap, you're in there and you're like, "Hey, you know what? I could use a cell phone." And if you're buying a cell phone, you're like, "You know what? I could use more soap." And I thought, man, this sounds like a dumb idea. But honestly, I was objecting with myself. And I thought, what do I know? Like, I'm just some young dude. I don't know anything. Guess what I was doing 6 months later? Getting paid to take down the signs and put them in my boneyard.
Exactly.
Anyway, I'll pause at the one. The other one's funny too, but that's the point. Is like he got enamored with this idea, and he had talked himself into it. And the other problem is when we're starting a business, usually we tell our friends and family, they're not going to tell us we're dumb. Like, that sounds like a lovely idea. In fact, I'll come buy some soap from you. I knew it. I knew this was a great idea. And so you've really got to get advice from people who've been around the block that are willing to tell you, like, that sounds really fucking stupid, or you don't have enough money to get that off the ground.
I always encourage them to find an industry expert, somebody that's not even remotely a competitor, has been far more successful in that field, and just ask them.
Yeah.
They're always glad to help. I can't ever say anybody's ever said no.
You know? This dialogue is funny because like I feel like that when you get entrepreneurs together like us talking, like it's amazing to us about some of the things I think that we intrinsically already do just as entrepreneurs to get us through, right? But I mean, Levi was pointing out that there are all these people that get enamored by their ideas. That can be easily confused with a passion or a drive, right? Like what we have drive and passion.
Yeah.
But I would never say that I'm enamored by some sort of idea that was like driving me to like ignorance. Yeah. Because the other layer I put on top of it is I might be passionate about this, but then I see the market size and I'm like, holy smokes, this thing's huge. Then I think, how do I scale my business?
Yeah.
Like, it may not be today, but I have a scalable
You take it a few steps farther down the road.
I'm thinking years down the road, how do I multiply this thing? Because if I had a smoothie shop and it was only doing $250,000 a year, my immediately thought would be, how do I franchise this and get thousands of locations? Because 1,000 times $100,000 profit's a hell of a lot of money.
Right.
So day one, I'm not thinking about one smoothie
Slim
shop.
Chickens.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not thinking, if I'm doing the soap and cell phone business, I'm like, I don't know. That one's a hard one, Levi.
Another similar example to that. I had a friend of mine, he ran a Firestone store, and he calls me up one day. He goes, you know what? He goes, I'm tired of my showroom. It's got tires and shit in it. He goes, I'm going to start I want to turn it into a golf pro shop. And I'm like, okay, they're getting my tires fixed and now I'm going to buy a new putter or whatever. I'm not a golfer. Okay. But I started doing a little online research, and you know what I found out? 69% of tire buyers are women. What percentage of women are golfers? I said, dude, you'd be better off sticking greeting cards and freaking magazines and stuff in there if that's what you want to sell. You know, it's like, but people do come up with these crazy ideas, and you're just like, what are
a lot of times, Levi, I don't know if this is your experience, but if I have an idea, like, then I hate it when people say, "Oh, Eric has a lot of ideas." I don't have freaking ideas.
Exactly.
I'm sniffing something.
Yeah.
I'm more of a sniffer than an idea person, right?
Yeah.
But like for that example, if with a little bit of thinking about what is the market doing, and where's the problem in the market, and am I competent and excited to go solve that problem? That to me is how you start a business. I like soaps and cell phones.
Yes.
Wouldn't you agree, Levi?
Yeah, 100%. I love attacking ideas simply because all ideas are liabilities. And people have an idea, they think it's worth something. Like my cousin wanted me to sign an NDA. He comes to me and asks for my advice, and then asks me to sign an NDA on his idea. Like, first of all, I'm not going to sign the dumbest shit. I'm like, and he would have to manufacture something. I'm like, this is a liability. Well, what do you mean? You have to lose a bunch of money before you ever make $1 profit. All ideas are liabilities. Even in the venture-backed world, when you have a pitch deck and someone says it's worth $8 million, that just means it's a huge fucking liability because it's actually worth less than zero, but you're pretending it's worth a lot of money. So now you got a long ways to climb before it's actually worth $8 million, right? It's all made up. It's imaginary. And so
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I have had people come to me. I want to tell you about I want feedback on my business idea. I want to have coffee. You sit down with them. It's like, no, I need you to sign an NDA. I'm like, I'm done. Okay. I said, ideas are a dime a dozen. There's a zillion freaking ideas. Okay. I am not going to sign your NDA. I always discourage, but you know what? They actually get advice from attorneys to do that. It's like, well, I call my mom and dad have an attorney, and he said that I should get this
Of course
NDA
they
signed.
do.
I'm like, what do your mom and dad know about freaking business?
Well, and of course,
okay?
an attorney's like, "Oh, you absolutely
Yeah.
need to pay me $300 to write you an NDA that I created 10 years ago."
I've had attorneys tell my students they shouldn't even discuss their idea with anyone because they could claim that they had ownership in the idea if they ever create a business, and that they then are owed money. That's taking it a little far, don't you think?
And not to mention, like, an NDA to me is worthless in a lot of ways, right? Unless it's like, once you get into like selling a business, or you get into those like very targeted circles of where like there's a closed caption of people that are like engaged, and so everybody's going to sue the hell out of each other if it blows up. But from the beginning, an NDA to me means nothing. Like, I don't want to sign one. I also don't want to ask for one.
Yeah.
If I don't trust that environment, then I'm not going to talk.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because if I have something of a sniff something, and I got a product and a business I'm wanting to take, and I go anywhere where I think that there's some vultures around,
Yeah.
I'm not going to go talk to them.
Exactly.
I'm going to shut my mouth about a quarter of the way through and give them just enough to see, make sure that I don't walk out of the room. They know better than me, So, this is actually therapeutic. I don't know about you guys.
It is. Well, that's another thing, though, Eli, and I don't know how much this impacts you in your work with these small companies, but they seem to me as if they guard their financial information like it's something that's so sacred they can't share it with anybody, and it's ridiculous. Okay, what are they going to do with your information if they have it?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So if you need money, you need input, you need investors, you need advice, you got to be willing to open up the books a little bit and let people take a peek under the hood.
Yeah.
What are they going to do with it? I think the fear is it's either one of two things. They're either making a lot of money and they think, oh, somebody's going to copy me, or they're going to think I'm greedy. But more often than not, they're embarrassed by how poorly the thing performs. That's what I think.
Do you experience that through NAV? Like, I mean, with folks hesitant to even get financing because of their book, the way their books look?
Less so with financing, just because there's a big enough motivation. But in our platform, you can attach your checking account to our software, so we can give you cash flow advice and insights around your cash flow. And if someone wants financing today, there's no hesitation. A lot of times when people sign up, they'll get the business credit, personal credit. They'll skip that step because they're like, well, I don't know about that. Like, it's one thing I'm only going to see my credit if I do it through you, but I don't know about my cash flows. And so we farm up those connections over time through engagement, where they get better and better context, because we're connecting the dots. Like, hey, you got slow pays in your business credit, connect your checking account. So we give you some advice on how to better manage your cash flow so you can stop getting late payments. But it's certainly true that business owners hesitate. I think it's less so when it's a digital environment. It doesn't feel like really personal. Like, okay, well, this software, like, nobody now is like looking at someone's data unless it's someone in customer care, because someone called in and said, can you help me understand my data? But it's also like, we're only there to help you with your data. But I think it's what you said, though, spot on. And unfortunately, I think it's less often that I'm making a lot of money and I don't want somebody to know. It's usually like, I'm embarrassed, but usually times that's uninformed, because you look at the financials, you're like, you're actually doing pretty good. Jesus Christ, you only been doing this 18 months. Like, you should feel really good about this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. They don't even know that. Right.
Yeah.
And then they're getting that feedback. That's encouraging for a new business owner, for sure. And then in the business financing market, a good comparable I think about is like Lending Tree, right? Where you have one source and it casts out to all these different lenders, right? Yeah. Which is absolutely ferocious. The worst idea that you can do.
The insurance thing is even worse.
Yeah.
They just will not let go of
it. Oh, no, God. It's spam calls for months.
Yeah, exactly.
Months. But I mean, does it work that way in the business sector too, to where, like, if I get my creditworthiness, which is what I'll be using NAV for, so I'm ready, right? I'm ready to submit for financing. A, do you offer that next step? And B, how does that actually happen? Does it kind of get cast out, or is it really highly procured? How does that work?
Yeah, and thanks for the question, because I should proactively voice that over earlier. Because we're tied into the personal credit, all three commercial bureau reports, and the cash flows of the business. That's 90% of any financing underwriting scenario. And so we're always connecting the dots in real time as we refresh the data to, here's a business credit card, here's some net 30 accounts you're qualified for, here's a business loan you could get. And then again, it's very clear on, like, if you don't like that option, here's the things that you need to work on so that a better option shows up. But because it's based on your data, it's not cluttered up with stuff you're not qualified for. It's just in the here and now. If you need financing, here's your options. But here's what you could do to improve those options over time. And even with one lender, and we're about to go live with a second lender, it's proactive approval. So you don't actually even have to apply for the loan if you're qualified. It just shows up and lives and breathes as a loan approval. The amounts and terms may change, your data changes, just for the better or the worse on the financing. But we're trying to, over time, as lenders gain more sophistication on the technology side, to kind of flip that on its head. Like, if your data already lives here and this is what somebody needs to underwrite you, why make you then go apply? Like, why not just bring that approval proactively into the system?
Nice. Very cool.
I love that. And let me ask you a question on that. So, okay, that sounds fantastic.
It does.
But like, in all kinds of circumstances, and you probably have done a thousand things to try to mitigate this, Levi. Now it's kind of like almost going in your business model about how you help. Okay, I have a business. I want to do this, but what I'm assuming is that there's probably quite a bit of work and attention that I need to give if I signed up with NAV, not only in the beginning, obviously, but then even as my numbers update, right? Because I'm talking like our business numbers are not updating obviously every month, at least at minimum, or
throughout
and so
the month.
somebody has to go in, continue to massage it, fix the problems that you flagged, review all the different financing approvals, pre-approvals that you've been able to provide to me through NAV. I mean, there's some pretty good amount of work in that, wouldn't you say? And if so, about how many hours do I need to full-time staff this, part-time staff it? Is it mostly bookkeepers, or is it the president, CEOs that are in your system? How does that look?
By and large, it's the business owner themselves, because part of the view is your personal credit. Because no matter how good your business credit is and how buttoned up your financials are, your personal credit will still be considered in any type of business credit card or favorable type of financing. If the terms are favorable, your personal credit's going to come into play. So that's why we incorporate consumer credit data into our user experience. The amount of work from a readiness perspective you need to do, it's highly dynamic, individual to individual business, based on, like I said, the decisions you made over the previous years led to this moment in time and what you look like today. For a lot of our users, like, it's a pleasant surprise. They've never had a view to their data, but they're somebody who, as a consumer, was really buttoned up, and so they just carried those habits into the business. And so guess what? That the habits of being a buttoned up consumer financially are the same habits you need to be a business that's buttoned up financially and from a credit perspective. So it's just highly dynamic, but it's usually the business owner themselves that's in the account. The engagement, like how often they log in, how often they're doing things, kind of directly correlates to either how much work they have to do, or am I trying to get financing right now, or am I in the middle and I'm just making sure I have good options when I get there. A lot of our best customers are a little bit of set and forget. Like, they knew how hard it was to build good business credit and have solid personal credit and everything. They just want to make sure it doesn't go off the rails. And so they're just watching the alerts to make sure, some random tax lien or something like that doesn't show up on their credit. So it's all across the spectrum. The highest engagement comes from the folks that are either starting the business or they've like made it, but they've got so much fine tuning to do to make sure it's consistently profitable. They can take a paycheck, that kind of stuff. That's where, people will log in every day, once, twice a week. Just depends on where you're at in your journey.
And I know, I'm sorry, Mark, I know that you said you connect to bank accounts, but are you API connected with QuickBooks or any other types of business softwares?
Yeah, we're a lot more focused on the cash flow, just because very few small business owners keep their QuickBooks or Xero up to date. And so like even to underscore this point, I point out to people that Intuit has its own business loan product. So they will give their customers loans. They don't base that loan on QuickBooks data. You're like, wait, what? They have all the accounting data. They base it based on the bank connection that's powering the QuickBooks data, because the bank account will always tell the truth, period. You may not like the truth, but it's going to tell the truth. You can massage your books, right? You can, let's just delete that loan that I got and make my debt coverage rate look better. But in the bank account data, there's this payment to XYZ lender. Why is that not showing up on your balance sheet?
Ready to level up your show? At podcastvideos.com, we offer industry-leading recording and expert marketing to help your show reach more listeners. From creation to distribution, we've got you covered. Visit podcastvideos.com and elevate your podcast today.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. I mean, I think my personal feeling about it, and Eric may disagree with this, I don't know, but I think a lot of small business owners divorce themselves from the day-to-day accounting too early. I mean, I do think it's essential. At some point, you got to give it up. But I mean, I'm going to be doing $2-3 million a year minimum, maybe 5 before I'm going to pull myself. I got to be in those books constantly to know what the hell is going on. That's how I feel, at least.
Hey, look, I'll be the first to admit, we've talked about this. I agree that is absolutely significant. My brain it's just not what you like. It's not your orientation. I don't know. It's never my priority in my mind.
Top line revenue is all you care about.
It's all I think about. I
like that though.
Right, sure, right. You know, I mean, it works hand in hand.
Covers a lot of sins. Okay.
It does. But I would say too, I'm like so surprised, but at the same time, I respect and recognize how absolutely critical it is to have a good books. Like I would say that like, for example, with podcast videos, the first hire I made was a CFO.
Yeah.
And the first thing I did was get my QuickBooks set up and my account set up. And the first thing I'm doing is making sure that everything is clean, build the processes so that every time something comes in, it's being accounted for. I have people watching the bank accounts. I have it like duplicated. So I have bankers watching. I have my bookkeepers watching. I'm watching a little bit.
Right. You got the processes down. And
it's very, down. Yeah. And so when you say, down. Levi, like a lot of people don't even, like they don't even have books. I'm like, that blows my mind. Like I would be sketched out if all I have was just my bank account. Like, how do you, but it makes sense about the truth being there.
That's what I had. My first year in business, the only thing I knew for certain was that more cash was coming in than was going out. Taxes was an absolute mess. My wife and I were like all weekend long, receipts spread across the living room floor. And I went into the accountant and he told me, he said, buy QuickBooks and I don't believe you're going to do anything with it. So if you don't buy QuickBooks and hire a bookkeeper, I'm not going to do your taxes next year. So went to Costco. It wasn't online back then. Bought it. I hired Loretta. She was also the office manager, made my first bookkeeping hire. I logged into QuickBooks one time and I was like, fuck, I don't get this. And then fast forward, QuickBooks moved to the cloud. And I was like, wow, that's cool. Now I'm in tech. You know, this is the late 2000s. So I hit up Carly, my bookkeeper. I'm like, give me a login. I want to check out QuickBooks Online. I logged in one time and I'm like, fuck, this is so hard to understand. Now I looked at the financials every month. Like I was always looking at the P&L. But so I still don't know how to. Now our finances are too complex. We're on NetSuite, but I don't even have a login to NetSuite, and I'm the CEO of the company.
I love it.
You two guys are.
I know this dude's like that. All he does is live in QuickBooks.
I got to be in there constantly. Okay, seeing what the hell's going on. Okay, right. Plus my daily cash flow reports. Plus my daily sales. I'm telling reports, you, man. Plus my weekly summaries. I mean, I can't operate like that.
I think that's fantastic. You know,
the results aren't very good. But
you're spending too many.
I can see it though.
Hey, he's spending too much time in the QuickBooks instead of driving revenue.
I need you.
I need you, bro. But that goes into the discussion of partnership, right?
It does. Oh yeah. I mean, people need to. That's the other thing. I mean, the way too many business partners are both trying to do the same thing. Yeah. They go, oh, we're just alike. We should be partners. That's the worst partner you ever want. You want somebody that's good at what you don't do.
Yeah, 100%. I can't believe we're already at time. Like, I love the conversation with you, man. Like,
me too.
It is therapeutic for me. I'm gonna walk out going, I'm not crazy. And things are great. And let's just keep doing what we're doing, right? And so we're gonna have you on again. What last piece of advice would you give to a small business owner in the financing world, just in general, like top level? Like, what is the smartest thing to do? What they could do to make sure they're ready for financing?
Well, I mean, I'm super biased, but sign up for NAV and see where you're at. I mean, it is in a shameless plug. Like, this business was fucking hell to build because we offer a very robust free product that we pay a lot of data costs for you to have something for free. But it's the only place you can get everything we're talking about. It's the only place. Like, one thing I'm very proud of, our competitors all failed. Like, they didn't make it, and we did. And so there's just not one, right? It's like, well, if all you want is trade credit, stay on top of your business credit. If all you need is an MCA, stay on top of your cash flow. But guess what? You're paying high costs. So it's just your financial readiness. The challenge is opportunities will drop into your lap, good ones, right? That then if you can't take advantage of them, it's just a shameless or a shameful miss. Like, you could have borrowed some money and taken advantage of something, and it's too late in the moment to then get to work on everything and get that loan so you can get that new customer or whatever.
Awesome. So Levi King, again, it's NAV. And I remember last time I was jealous about your domain. It's nav.com, right?
Yep.
And that NAV as in Victor.com. Go check it out. Sign up. Get your business health ready so that you can get that financing before you really, really, really need it.
Yeah, don't
Growth.
get it when you're desperate. Get it when you don't need it, and get it for growth.
Yes.
Not just survival.
That's
yes.
right.
And debt's great leverage.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of that debt.
Yeah.
Go on and get you some more of that debt, right?
Yeah.
Take that gamble.
That's right. And if you work for us, get a lot of debt because we really want you to be hooked. Okay. So you can't leave. All right.
That's a fair point. Levi, thanks again, man.
Thanks,
We'll have
Levi.
to do it again.
Thanks, guys. My pleasure.
All right. Have a good one. It's been another great episode of that.
Big talk about
that
small business.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Big Talk About Small Business. If you have any questions or ideas for upcoming shows, be sure to head over to our website, www.bigtalkaboutsmallbusiness.com, and click on the Ask the Host button for the chance to have your questions answered on the show. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn at Big Talk About Small Business. And be sure to head over to our website to read articles, browse episodes, and ask questions about upcoming shows.